What if the most insignificant moment of your day, making coffee for a stranger, could unravel a 25-year conspiracy that destroyed your family? Not a conspiracy of governments or corporations, but one crafted by the people who were supposed to love you most. For Maya Chen, a 27-year-old barista working 3 jobs to support her disabled younger brother, the past was simple and tragic. Her parents died in a house fire when she was 12. She and her brother David were raised by their grandmother in Chinatown, scraping by on Social Security and her grandmother's seamstress wages. But one rainy Thursday morning at Meridian Coffee, Manhattan's most exclusive cafe, a single coffee order would shatter everything Maya thought she knew about her life. The man who ordered a simple black coffee carried a leather briefcase with a faded sticker on it. A sticker from Chen Industries, the tech empire her grandmother always said. Belonged to other Chens, no relation to us. That sticker would prove her grandmother wrong, dead wrong. And the truth behind it would reveal a betrayal so devastating. It would either destroy what was left of Maya's family or finally give her the justice she never knew she deserved. The morning rush at Meridian Coffee was Maya Chen's daily gauntlet. Steam hissed from the espresso machine, orders flew across the marble counter, and Manhattan's elite grabbed their overpriced lattes without so much as acknowledging the woman who crafted them. At $8 for a cappuccino, Meridian catered to a clientele that considered baristas as invisible as the gold fixtures adorning the walls. Maya moved with practiced efficiency behind the counter, her black hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, her uniform crisp despite the chaos. At 27, she had the kind of beauty that exhaustion couldn't quite diminish. High cheekbones inherited from her Chinese mother, expressive dark eyes, and hands that moved with the grace of someone who had learned to make every motion count. "Double shot cortado, oat milk extra hot," she called out, sliding the cup across the marble surface to a woman in a $3,000 coat who didn't look up from her phone. This was Maya's world. Invisible labor in a visible place. She worked the morning shift at Meridian, afternoons at a bookstore in Soho, and weekends catering events. 3 jobs to cover rent on their cramped apartment and David's medical expenses. Her 23-year-old brother had cerebral palsy, brilliant mind trapped in a body that betrayed him daily. He was her whole world, and she was his. Their grandmother, Nai, had raised them after the fire. She had been their anchor, their storyteller, their fierce protector until she passed 2 years ago at 89. The loss had been devastating, but Maya carried on, because David needed her, and because Nai had taught her that Chen women were survivors. "Next," Maya called out, wiping steam from her forehead. The man who stepped forward was different from the usual Wall Street crowd. He was older, perhaps in his 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes behind expensive glasses. His suit was beautifully tailored but understated. What caught Maya's attention wasn't his appearance, it was his briefcase. Battered brown leather, clearly decades old, it sat on the counter as he reached for his wallet. And there, partially hidden by wear and scratches, was a sticker, faded and cracked, but still readable. Chen Industries, innovation through integration. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Chen Industries, the tech conglomerate that had built half of Silicon Valley. She knew the name because Nai used to joke about it whenever they saw it in the news. "Same last name, different world," her grandmother would say with a laugh. "Those Chens make computers, we make do." But seeing the sticker up close, Maya felt an inexplicable pull of recognition. Something about it seemed familiar, though she couldn't place why. "Just a black coffee," the man said, his voice cultured and warm. "Large?" "Of course," Maya replied, trying to shake off the strange feeling. She poured the coffee, her eyes drifting back to the briefcase. "That's an interesting sticker," she found herself saying, immediately regretting the familiarity. The man followed her gaze and smiled sadly. Ah, that old thing. It belonged to my business partner. We started Chen Industries together back in 1985. He touched the briefcase gently, as if it were precious. He died many years ago, but I could never bring myself to replace this case. Too many memories. Chen Industries, Maya repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Your partner was named Chen. David Chen, the man said, his expression growing melancholy. Brilliant man. Visionary. We were going to change the world together. He paused, studying Maya's face with sudden intensity. You know, you have his eyes. Remarkable resemblance, actually. Are you by any chance related to the Chen family? It's not an uncommon name, but the resemblance is quite striking. Maya felt the world shift beneath her feet. David Chen. Her father's name had been David Chen, but that was impossible. Her father had been a delivery driver, not a tech mogul. He had died with her mother in a house fire in Chinatown when she was 12. My father's name was David Chen, she heard herself saying, though her voice sounded far away. But he wasn't. He wasn't involved in any business. He was just a delivery driver. The man's face went completely white. The coffee cup in his hand began to tremble, and for a moment Maya thought he might drop it. What did you say your father's name was? He whispered, his kind eyes now wide with something between hope and terror. David Chen, Maya repeated, her own hands starting to shake. But he died 25 years ago in a fire with my mother, Linda. The coffee cup slipped from the man's fingers and shattered on the marble floor, sending hot liquid and ceramic shards across the pristine cafe. Other customers turned to stare, but Maya couldn't move. She was locked in the man's gaze, seeing something there that made her chest tighten with a fear she couldn't name. Linda Wong, he breathed, and it wasn't a question. It was a confirmation of something impossible. Oh my God, oh my dear God. He reached across the counter with trembling hands, not caring about the mess or the stares. What's your name, child? Maya, she whispered. Maya Chen. The man's legs seemed to give out. He gripped the counter for support, tears streaming down his face. Maya, he repeated as if testing the word. David always said if he had a daughter he'd name her Maya, after Maya Angelou, Linda's favorite. Poet! The busy cafe faded around them. The hiss of the espresso machine, the chatter of customers, the clink of cups. It all became white noise as Maya stared at this stranger, who knew things about her parents that she had never heard before. Sir, she managed to say, her voice cracking, I don't understand. Who are you? He straightened up, wiping his eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion but steady. My name is Robert Harrison, he said. I was your father's business partner. And Maya, I need you to know. Your parents didn't die in a house fire. They were murdered. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. The carefully constructed story of her life, the tragedy that had shaped her entire existence, crumbled in an instant. That's impossible, she whispered, but even as she said it, she could see in Robert Harrison's eyes that it wasn't impossible at all. It was the truth. And the truth was about to destroy everything she thought she knew about herself, her family, and the life she'd been living as a lie. Robert Harrison insisted they meet privately. Maya, numb with shock, managed to get coverage for the rest of her shift and found herself in the back seat of a black car heading toward Manhattan's Upper East Side. Her phone buzzed with a text from David asking where she was, but she couldn't even begin to explain what was happening when she didn't understand it herself. Harrison's apartment was a study in understated wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, Persian rugs that probably cost more than Maya made in a year, and walls lined with books and photographs. But it was one particular photograph that made Maya's knees buckle. There, in a silver frame on the mantelpiece, was a picture of two young men in their 20s, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera. One of them was clearly a younger Robert Harrison. The other man had Maya's eyes, her nose, her smile. "That's him," Harrison said softly, following her gaze. "That's your father, David Chen." Maya approached the photograph like she was walking through a dream. The man in the picture looked nothing like the vague memories she had of her father. Memories that had grown increasingly fuzzy over the years. This man was confident, successful, alive with possibility. "I don't understand," Maya whispered. "My grandmother told me he was a delivery driver, that they were poor, that they died in a fire in our apartment building." Harrison guided her to a leather armchair and poured himself a glass of whiskey with shaking hands. "Your grandmother lied to you, Maya. She lied to protect you, but she lied nonetheless." He sat across from her, the weight of 25 years heavy in his eyes. "Your father and I started Chen Industries in 1985. We were both MIT graduates, computer science, majors who believed we could revolutionize personal computing. And we did. By 1990, we were worth millions. By 1995, hundreds of millions." Maya shook her head. "This is impossible. We lived in Chinatown. We were poor. I remember—" "What do you remember exactly?" Harrison asked gently. Maya tried to focus on her childhood memories, but they felt strangely distant, like photographs that had been left in the sun too long. I remember moving in with Nai after the fire. I remember her crying. I remember being scared." "You were 12 when they brought you to your grandmother," Harrison confirmed. "But Maya, there was no fire. Your parents were shot in their home in Westchester County. You survived because you were at a sleepover at a friend's house." The room spun around Maya. She gripped the arms of the chair, trying to anchor herself to reality. "Shot? By who?" Harrison's face darkened. "That's the question I've been trying to answer for 25 years. The police investigation was inadequate. No arrests were ever made, but I have my suspicions." He stood and walked to a mahogany desk, pulling out a thick manila folder. "Your father was brilliant, Maya, but he was also trusting, too trusting. In 1998, just before he died, he discovered that someone had been embezzling from the company, millions of dollars, siphoned off through fake contracts and inflated expenses." Maya's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Inside were financial documents, bank statements, and correspondence, all bearing her father's signature. "He came to me a week before he died," Harrison continued, his voice heavy with regret. "He said he knew who was stealing from us, but he wanted to confront them privately first, give them a chance to make it right. I begged him to go to the authorities, but David believed in redemption. He believed people could change." "Who was it?" Maya asked, though part of her dreaded the answer. "Your uncle," Harrison said quietly. "Thomas Chen, your father's younger brother." The name hit Maya like a sledgehammer. Uncle Thomas. She had vague memories of him from early childhood, a man who visited occasionally, who brought gifts and made her parents tense. After the fire, Nai had told her that Uncle Thomas had moved away and couldn't be reached. "Thomas was supposed to be our CFO," Harrison explained. "David brought him into the company in 1990, wanting to keep the business in the family. But Thomas had gambling debts, drug problems, expensive tastes he couldn't afford on even a generous salary. So he started stealing." Maya stared at the documents, seeing her father's careful notations in the margins, his growing alarm as the thefts mounted. "You think Uncle Thomas killed them?" "I think your father confronted Thomas, threatened to expose him, and Thomas panicked." Harrison sat, back down, looking older than his years. "What I can prove is that 3 days after your parents' funeral, Thomas Chen liquidated his shares in the company and disappeared. He's been living off that money ever since." "Where is he now?" Harrison's smile was grim. "That's the interesting part. He never left New York. He's been here the whole time, just under a different identity." He changed his name, got plastic surgery, created an entirely new life for himself. He pulled out another photograph. He goes by Marcus Thompson now. He's been living in the same city as you for 25 years, Maya. And he's very, very wealthy. The photograph showed a man in his 60s with silver hair and a carefully groomed beard. He was standing in front of a luxury car dealership, shaking hands with someone in a business suit. Maya studied his face, trying to see traces of the uncle she barely remembered, but the features had been altered enough to make recognition difficult. He owns a chain of high-end car dealerships, Harrison continued. Thompson Luxury Motors. Very successful, very respectable. No one knows that his fortune was built on his brother's blood. Maya felt a cold rage building in her chest. He's been living in luxury while David and while we've been struggling just to survive. Your brother, Harrison said suddenly. David, named after your father? Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face. He has cerebral palsy, the medical bills, the care he needs. I work 3 jobs just to keep us afloat. Harrison closed his eyes as if the pain of it was too much to bear. Your father left instructions in his will. If anything happened to him, there was a trust fund set up for you and any siblings. Millions of dollars, specifically for education and medical care. He opened his eyes, meeting her gaze. Thomas made sure that will never saw the light of day. The magnitude of the betrayal was overwhelming. Not only had Thomas Chen murdered her parents, but he had stolen her and David's future, condemning them to a life of poverty while he lived in luxury off their father's blood money. Why didn't you look for me? Maya asked, her voice barely controlled. 25 years and you never tried to find me? Shame washed over Harrison's features. I did try. For years, I hired private investigators, contacted police departments. But your grandmother was terrified. She told them you had died in the fire too, that the whole family was gone. She created false identities for you and your brother, moved you to different apartments every few years. She was convinced that if Thomas found out you were alive, he would kill you too. Maya understood now why her memories of childhood were so fragmented. They had lived like fugitives, constantly moving, constantly hiding. Nai had protected them the only way she knew how, by erasing their past completely. But she's gone. Now, Maya said, and I'm not a child anymore. I want justice. Harrison leaned forward, his eyes intense. Justice won't be easy to get. Thomas has covered his tracks well, and it's been 25 years. The evidence is circumstantial, but Maya, there's something else you need to know. He walked back to the desk and pulled out a legal document. When your father died, his shares in Chen Industries didn't disappear. They were held in trust, waiting for his heirs to claim them. Thomas couldn't touch them without risking exposure. Maya looked at the document, not understanding the legal language but seeing her father's name repeated throughout. What does this mean? It means, Harrison said, with the first real smile she had seen from him, that you and your brother are the rightful owners of 45% of Chen Industries. It means you're not poor, Maya. You never were. You're worth approximately $2.8 billion. The number was so large it felt meaningless. Maya stared at the document, trying to process what she was hearing. Billionaire, her and David. The brother she had been struggling to care for, who needed expensive treatments she couldn't afford, was actually one of the richest people in America. But first, Harrison said, his expression growing serious, we have to deal with your uncle. Because when he finds out you're alive and ready to claim what's yours, he's going to try to kill you again. And this time, he has a lot more to lose. The revelation that she was worth billions of dollars felt surreal, but the knowledge that her uncle had murdered her parents and was still out there felt terrifyingly real. Maya left Harrison's apartment with her head spinning, and a bodyguard, a professional security expert Harrison had insisted on, I need to tell David, was the first coherent thought she managed to form. Her brother deserved to know the truth, about their family, about their father, about the money that could change his life completely. But when she arrived home to their cramped apartment in Chinatown, she found David in his wheelchair at his computer, his face pale with shock. "Maya," he said, turning to face her, "we need to talk. Someone came to see me today." Maya's blood ran cold. "Who?" "A man. He said his name was Marcus Thompson. He said he was our uncle, and that he'd been looking for us for years." David's intelligent eyes were filled with confusion and fear. "He said our grandmother had hidden us from him, kept us from our real family. He wants us to come live with him. He says he can give us everything we've ever wanted." Maya felt the world tilt. Thomas had found them. Somehow, despite all of Nai's precautions, despite 25 years of hiding, he had found them, and he was making his move. "What did you tell him?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I told him I needed to talk to you first," David said. "But Maya, he seemed so sincere. He was crying when he talked about our parents. He said he'd been searching for us since the fire, that he blamed himself for not being able to protect them." The manipulation was smooth, Maya had to admit, playing the grieving uncle, the family member who had been kept away by circumstances beyond his control. If she hadn't spent the afternoon learning the truth, she might have believed him too. "David," she said carefully, sitting down across from him, "what I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible. But I need you to listen to everything before you say anything." For the next hour, Maya told her brother everything. About Robert Harrison, about Chen Industries, about their father's true identity and their uncle's betrayal. David listened, without interruption, his expression cycling through disbelief, horror, and finally, a cold anger that Maya had never seen in him before. "He killed them," David said when she finished. It wasn't a question. "And now he's here, because he knows. We've found out." Maya nodded. "Harrison thinks he's going to try to kill us. He's had 25 years to build a new life, and we're the only threat to it." David was quiet for a long moment, his brilliant mind processing the information. "Or," he said finally, "he's going to try a different approach. Think about it. Maya, we've been living in poverty our whole lives. Most people in our situation would be grateful to discover a wealthy uncle who wants to help. He might be planning to take us in, gain our trust, and then arrange." The thought chilled Maya to the bone. It was entirely possible. Thomas could play the loving uncle, shower them with gifts and comfort, and then eliminate them once he had access to their lives and routines. "What do we do?" Maya asked. David's smile was sharp and determined. "We play along, but we're going to be the ones setting the trap." The next morning, Maya called the number Thomas had left with David. Her heart hammered as the phone rang, but when he answered, she forced her voice to sound grateful and emotional. "Uncle Thomas, this is Maya. David told me you came by yesterday. I can't believe you're real. I thought we were all alone in the world." "Maya," Thomas's voice was warm and paternal, expertly crafted to sound loving. "My dear girl, I've been searching for you and your brother for so many years. When I heard about the fire, I was devastated. I thought I had lost my entire family." "We'd love to meet you," Maya said, letting tears creep into her voice. "David and we've struggled so much. To know we have family, it means everything." Of course," Thomas said smoothly. "I want to take care of you both. You're all I have left of my brother. Why don't you come to my home tonight? I'll have my chef prepare something special, and we can talk about your future." Maya agreed to the dinner, then immediately called Harrison. "He's moving fast. He wants us to come to his house tonight." "Absolutely not," Harrison said firmly. "It's too dangerous. He could have anything planned." "Which is exactly why we need to go," Maya replied. "David's right. We need to control this situation. If we can get evidence of what he did, we can finally get justice." Harrison was quiet for a moment. "You want to wear a wire? I want to make him confess, and I want to record every word." That evening, Maya and David arrived at the Thompson estate in Westchester County, ironically just a few miles from where their parents had been murdered. The house was a monument to wealth and taste, all modern lines and expensive materials. Marcus Thompson greeted them at the door, and Maya had to fight not to recoil when he embraced her. "Look at you both," he said, tears in his eyes that seemed completely genuine. "You look so much like David and Linda. It breaks my heart." David played his part perfectly, seeming awed by the luxury around them. "Uncle Thomas, this place is incredible. You've done so well for yourself." "I've been blessed," Thomas replied modestly, "and now I want to share those blessings with you, your family. You should never have had to struggle the way you have." During dinner, Thomas spun a masterful tale of grief and searching. He claimed he had been traveling overseas when the fire happened, that by the time he returned, they had disappeared into the foster system. He spoke lovingly of their parents, sharing seemingly genuine memories that made Maya's chest ache. But Maya noticed things that revealed the truth beneath the performance. The way his eyes went cold when he thought they weren't looking, the slight tremor in his hands when David mentioned their father, the expensive artwork on the walls, pieces that Maya recognized from her father's files as having been purchased with embezzled money. "I want you both to move in here," Thomas said over dessert. "There's more than enough room, and I can give you everything you need. David, I know about your condition. I can arrange the best medical care money can buy." "That's incredibly generous," Maya said, letting genuine emotion into her voice, though not the kind he thought. "But Uncle Thomas, there's something I need to ask you about our parents, about what really happened that night." Thomas's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean, dear?" "I've been having dreams," Maya lied smoothly. "Memories? Maybe. I remember voices, shouting, and I remember seeing you there at our house the night they died." The mask slipped for just a moment. Thomas's eyes went flat and dangerous before the loving uncle expression returned. "Dreams can be tricky things, Maya, especially traumatic memories from childhood. You were so young, so scared. I'm sure whatever you think you remember isn't accurate." "Maybe," Maya said, "but I remember you arguing with Daddy about money, about some business deal." Thomas set down his fork carefully. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its warmth. "Maya, I think you've been listening to the wrong people. Has someone been filling your head with stories about me?" David leaned forward, playing confused and concerned. "What kind of stories?" Thomas studied them both carefully, and Maya could see him making calculations. "There are people who were jealous of your father's success, people who might try to turn you against your own family with lies and accusations." "Like Robert Harrison?" Maya asked innocently. Thomas went completely still. "You've spoken to Robert Harrison." It wasn't a question, and the pretense was finally dropping. Maya felt David tense beside her, ready for whatever was about to happen. "He told us some very interesting things about Chen Industries," Maya continued, her voice steady despite the danger she could feel radiating from Thomas, "about embezzlement, about murder." Thomas laughed, but it was an ugly sound. "Robert Harrison is a bitter old man who's been obsessed with conspiracy theories for decades. You can't believe anything he tells you." "So you didn't steal money from the company?" David asked, his innocent act perfect. "Your father and I had business disagreements," Thomas said carefully. "That's normal between partners, but I never stole anything." "And you didn't kill our parents?" Maya asked, the question hanging in the air like a blade. The silence stretched for an eternity. Thomas looked from Maya to David, and she could see him weighing his options. Finally, he smiled, a cold, calculating expression that looked nothing like the loving uncle from an hour before. "You're both smarter than I gave you credit for," he said, "just like your father, always too clever for your own good." Maya's hand moved toward the panic button Harrison had given her, but Thomas was faster. He pulled a gun from beneath the key-in table, pointing it steadily at David's chest. "I wouldn't," he said calmly. "One wrong move and your disabled brother dies first. And that would be a shame because I actually like the kid." The transformation was complete. The loving uncle was gone, replaced by the cold killer who had destroyed their family 25 years ago. "You want to know what really happened that night?" Thomas asked, his voice almost conversational. "Your father was going to destroy me, ruin my life over a few $1,000,000, as if he couldn't spare it, as if family loyalty meant nothing to him." "You were stealing from your own company," Maya said, keeping her voice level despite the gun pointed at her brother. "I was taking what I deserved," Thomas snapped, the first crack in his composure. "Do you know what it's like to watch your older brother get everything? The praise, the success, the perfect wife, the perfect children. I built that company too, but David got all the credit." "So you killed them?" Thomas shrugged. "I went to reason with him, to explain my situation, asked for his help. But your father was always so righteous, so moral. He said he was going to call the police in the morning, that I had 24 hours to confess, or he would expose me himself." Maya could see the scene, playing out in her mind, her father trying to give his brother a chance to do the right thing, never imagining that Thomas would choose murder instead. "Your mother walked in on us," Thomas continued, his voice flat with memory. "Started screaming about calling the police. I panicked. The gun went off twice before I really understood what I had done. And then you spent 25 years living off their blood money while David and I struggled in poverty," Maya said, letting all her rage show in her voice. "I made the best of a bad situation," Thomas replied defensively. "And I looked for you, I really did. But your grandmother did too good a job hiding you. I eventually assumed you had died or disappeared forever." "So what changed?" David asked. "Why are you here now?" Thomas's smile returned, cold and triumphant. "Because 3 days ago, Robert Harrison filed papers to have you declared alive and able to claim your inheritance. The legal notice was published in the Business Journal. I saw your names, and I knew my time was running out." Maya felt a chill. Harrison hadn't told them about filing any papers. So this dinner, this whole loving uncle act, was supposed to end with a tragic murder-suicide, Thomas finished. Poor Maya, overwhelmed by learning the truth about her parents. Kills her disabled brother and then herself. Very sad, very neat. And with you both dead, there would be no one left to claim the Chen Industries shares. "Except people know we're here," David pointed out. "Harrison, the bodyguard." "We'll find your bodies tomorrow morning," Thomas said, calmly. "I've had 25 years to perfect the art of making murders look like something else. You think this is my first time cleaning up loose ends?" Maya felt ice form in her veins. "You've killed other people, a private investigator who got too close to the truth, a reporter who was asking uncomfortable questions about the original investigation." Thomas checked his watch. "But I'm getting sentimental in my old age. This conversation has gone on long. Enough." He raised the gun, aiming at David's head. "Goodbye, nephew." The shot was deafeningly loud in the elegant dining room. Maya screamed and threw herself toward her brother, certain she was about to see him die, but David was unharmed. Thomas, however, was on the floor, blood spreading across the Persian rug. Robert Harrison stood in the doorway, a smoking gun in his hand, and a team of armed security behind him. "Hello, Thomas," Harrison said, his voice deadly calm. "Been looking for you for 25 years. Thomas was still alive, but barely. Blood frothed from his lips as he tried to speak. "You can't prove..." Anything. Harrison smiled and held up a small recording device. Actually, we can prove everything. Full confession, recorded and witnessed. Maya, David, are you both all right? Maya was shaking so hard she could barely speak, but David was already moving his wheelchair closer to their dying uncle. Why? He asked, his voice filled with a pain that had nothing to do with his disability. Why destroy your own family? Why take everything from us? Thomas's eyes were growing dim, but he managed one last hateful smile. Because I could, he whispered. Because your father never deserved what he had. Those were his final words. Thomas Chen, who had lived for 25 years as Marcus Thompson, died on the floor of his stolen mansion, surrounded by the wealth he had purchased with his brother's blood. The aftermath was a whirlwind of police, lawyers, and media attention. The story of the Chen Industries heirs and their murderous uncle became front-page news across the country. Maya found herself thrust into a spotlight she had never wanted, but she handled it with the same quiet strength that had carried her. Through years of struggling to care for David, the legal proceedings took months, but the outcome was never in doubt. Thomas's confession, combined with the financial evidence Harrison had preserved for decades, was overwhelming. The courts officially recognized Maya and David as the rightful heirs to their father's estate, including his shares in Chen Industries. Maya's first act as a billionaire was to establish a medical research foundation in her brother's name, funding cutting-edge treatments for cerebral palsy and other neurological conditions. David, meanwhile, used his newfound resources to pursue his dream of computer programming, developing innovative software that made technology more accessible for people with disabilities. They moved out of the cramped Chinatown apartment, but not to a mansion. Instead, they chose a beautiful but modest home in Brooklyn, with a garden where David could sit in the sunshine and enough space for the live-in medical assistant who helped manage his care. Maya left her 3 jobs, but didn't abandon work entirely. She took over the Chen Industries charitable foundation, using the company's resources to help other families in situations like theirs. Harrison became something between a business partner and a surrogate grandfather, teaching them about their father's vision for the company and helping them navigate their new roles as major shareholders. He had waited 25 years for justice, and seeing David and Maya reclaim their birthright was worth every sleepless night he had endured. The most difficult part was learning to live without fear. For months after Thomas's death, Maya would wake up in cold sweats, convinced that someone was coming for them. But gradually, with therapy and time, she began to understand that they were safe. The threat that had shadowed their entire lives was gone forever. One evening, as Maya sat in their garden watching David work on his latest software project, she thought about the strange journey that had brought them to this moment. A chance encounter at a coffee shop, a glimpse of a faded sticker, and their entire world had changed forever. "Do you think Nai would be proud of us?" David asked, following her gaze to the small memorial garden they had planted in their grandmother's honor. Maya smiled, touching the simple jade bracelet that was all she had left of the woman who had sacrificed everything to keep them safe. "I think she'd be amazed that her plan actually worked. She kept us alive long enough to claim our real lives." David nodded thoughtfully. "She always said Chen women were survivors. And Chen men too," Maya added, squeezing his shoulder. "Daddy would be so proud of what you're doing, how you're helping people like yourself." They sat in comfortable silence. As the sun set over Brooklyn, 2 siblings who had found their way home at last. The money would never bring back their parents or give them the childhood they had lost, but it had given them something almost as precious, the power to honor their father's memory by carrying on his work, and the security to build the kind of family he would have wanted them to be. The truth had indeed set them free, not just from poverty and struggle, but from the fear and lies that had defined their lives. They were no longer the hidden children of murdered parents. They were David and Maya Chen, heirs to a legacy of innovation and compassion, ready to change the world just as their father had dreamed of doing. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. Not the money or the justice or the headlines, but the simple fact that they had survived, and they had survived together, just as Nai Nai had always said they would. This story reminds us that the truth, no matter how long buried, has a way of surfacing when we least expect it. Maya and David's journey from poverty to justice shows us that family bonds can endure, even the most devastating betrayals, and that sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is the chance to reclaim their own story. What would you have done in Maya's situation? Would you have been brave enough to confront a killer, or would you have taken the money and disappeared? Have you ever discovered a family secret that changed everything you thought you knew about your life? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of courage, justice, and family bonds resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with friends and family who appreciate tales that show how the truth can triumph over even the darkest deceptions. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible real-life dramas that explore the complex relationships that define us. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the most ordinary moments can lead to the most extraordinary revelations. The truth may be buried, but it's never truly gone forever.